Alrighty then, folks. This is video number 2 on Return to Presence. Um, I'm here. Uh, Today, someone had commented or spoke to me about the last video, and they were like, you weren't filled with your joy and excitement, and I said, well, that wasn't what was 100% present for me at the time. And sometimes as I navigate life, different things need to be felt, whether it's grief or loss or just sadness in general. And lately I've been feeling a little bit of that. And tonight I didn't want to make a video, so I am. I'm working on shifting some of my behaviors and showing up differently. Yeah, so I wanted to talk a little bit about internal family systems work and what it means to me and how it's worked in my life. That's primarily the framework and modality to which I practice integration so that I can become all of me and bring compassion into my life. Yeah, it's not always easy. Sometimes I'm in fetal position with gut-wrenching tears, processing different things. And I know that this too shall pass. And it's just another paint of the mosaic of the masterpiece, which is in my life being made as I live. And I'm okay with that. I don't want these videos to be like sales pitches or anything like that. I just want them to be real. And that means showing up where I'm at. So, a little bit about internal family systems. It's a framework of the mind which allows us to dialogue with the subconscious so that we can identify strains or resistances in moving forward towards our dreams and find out why parts of us may be in fear. And then being curious with the aspects of fear, showing some compassion, listening, befriending, and learning why we maybe react in fear. And leaning in with non-judgment to those behaviors and beliefs so that they can shift and transform out of fear and into things more aligned, such as a direction forward, health, love, joy, laughter, play, Yeah. I don't know if any of you have ever wanted to work towards something and a part of you resisted, where it's like a part of me wants to do this, a part of me wants to do that. So in internal family systems, it's all about dialoguing with these parts of ourselves to create a sense of spaciousness, because when there's this inner argument, it can be overwhelming and sometimes debilitating to find a path forward. And so I discovered internal family systems about 5 years ago. And I was at a program called Coaching with Spirit through a university called the Graduate Institute, which unfortunately closed down, but it was similar to Naropa University, and they had things such as like Masters in Consciousness Studies, and really just focusing on how to be with oneself, how to increase conscious awareness, and how to integrate with the world around us and within us, both kind of one and the same. And in this course, really I was just looking for a way, really I was just following my heart and trying different things to help shift my mind state that was really fearful, really, really scared to engage with anyone or express. I was very timid, just very scared. And my internal world was filled with shame and doubt and anger. And I had no idea how to be with any of that. I sure as hell knew how to escape it. I had spent most of my life escaping being in my body and definitely being in my head and heart. But eventually escape the health, hurts, and it's time to face things and kind of walk through this like fire, this like internal fight, and see what happens, see how I can transform by being with all the parts of me that I disowned. I was also really scared to be in my body. I constantly stayed busy and distracted, whether that was through many different things. And so I discovered internal family systems through my mentor, Guthrie Sion, who's currently working or designed at this institute called the Institute of Healing and Awakening, with his partner in the business and organization, Barty. And I had no concept of being with the inside. I was very, very scared. And luckily, the instructor reflected confidence and courage and unbelievable sense of compassion. It was like a parent I never had. And that reflection allowed me to settle enough to start to begin to go inside in dialogue with my internal world. And I thought it was kind of crazy at first. I was like, what are you talking about? I'm going to talk to myself with myself and not get crazier than I already was. Um, but I decided to follow because of the peace that these individuals embodied. And a lot of people in that class were coming from, backgrounds as therapists and doctors and life coaches and many different things. And all of them thought we were just learning some tool uh, to hopefully, I don't know, I didn't really have any end goal, but I think, yeah, I didn't really have any end goal, but it was a tool, not really understanding that it was a framework to understand life through. That we all have these parts of ourselves that want to be loved and want to be listened to. You can think of the movie Inside Out as kind of a broad representation of it, but like the fear and disgust and shame and confusion and joy and different aspects of feelings and emotions and expressions. But what internal family systems kind of frames it as is there's several parts of the self. And when we're born, we come into this harmonious state where everything is integrated and we're filled with compassion and play and imagination and confidence and somehow along the way we become fractured and split, and life seems to lose some of its color. And usually that happens through times where we weren't really allowed to fully express. A lot of people think like, you become fractured or split through trauma, and trauma to me is just unexpressed emotions that become locked up in our bodies and then shift into maladaptive behaviors to keep us safe, even if they're harmful. And these times in our lives where we experience humiliation or grief or neglect or bullying or anything, and they could be so subtle. It could be a time where you wanted to share with a loved one or a parent or a peer as a child, and they looked away or didn't have enough time, and a part of you closed up a little bit. A part of us close up a little bit, and eventually this self, this like whole part steps aside and different parts tend to take over. So first let me just discuss how the parts are labeled within internal family systems. And they can show up differently in people, but there's things called the protectors, and then there's the exiles, and then there's the self. And what the protectors are is they protect our inner child. They don't want it to feel hurt or overwhelmed. And so when at times when we've experienced overwhelm, they tend to take the seat of consciousness so we can continue living. And so there's two forms of protectors. There's the managers and there's the firefighters. And managers are very proactive, meaning they just don't want you to become triggered. And, they get up, they do things, they're very task oriented. Like I got to get this stuff done, the to-do list of life. And firefighters are reactive. When the system gets triggered, they're self-soothing. So it's like, I need rest. I want some ice cream. I need to lay down. Maybe call a friend. And a really fractured kind of space, you could look at the far end of the spectrum of a firefighter self-soother as a traditional addict, whatever that addiction may be, And then you could look at it as an overactive manager on the far end of the spectrum as one that's like overworking and just constantly staying busy, doesn't want to feel what's below the surface. And so these protectors, what I like to call gatekeepers, hold the keys to our inner child. And sometimes when we experience neglect or, lack, or we absorb these limiting beliefs about ourselves, the childlike qualities get placed away. We lose some of the play and the curiosity to explore with imagination and dream. And the gatekeepers, the protectors, the managers, and firefighters are this kind of outward expression, and ultimately what happens is they take over. And then there's the self as well, which I forgot. The self is this observant part of us that's always curious, compassionate, calm, playful, present, confident, and has no agenda. It's just there, knowing that you're whole, regardless of how you feel. And the goal is to kind of identify the resistance between these parts. Most people tend to have a fight between the manager and the firefighter. We over self-soothe, when things get triggered in our lives, or we overmanage and work too hard. And then the firefighter's like, we need to stop. And, there's typically a fight, and what they call that is a polarization. Polarization is just kind of parts not seeing eye to eye. And so the first steps is to befriend these protectors. Listen to them. And sometimes when we go in and begin to listen to the internal space, they can be like, what the heck are you doing here? I run this show. Like, you have not been here listening at all. There can be a lot of distrust towards anybody coming in, especially if in our lives we've gone against our best intuition, or not followed what we always believed was right, or were hurt by people that we trusted. There's many different ways to get to a place where parts fear even our own selves. So you listen to that. We go inside, we listen. They could be like, F you, I don't want to hear from you. And you be with them and you listen to that. Eventually, over time, listening to them, asking them what they may need, they tend to settle a little bit. and we start to get into deeper levels of the nervous system where it's not this like fight, flight, freeze, or fawn mentality, and the grip of control from the gatekeepers starts to release a little bit. Because usually they're pretty overworked and tired, and they want to shift into new roles and new behaviors. They just don't know how. And so you listen, you befriend them, eventually you dialogue with them, ask them what they need as they build trust. And if you're working with someone who's doing this, they can kind of reflect and kind of guide some of the questions. But it's a really internal work. And you're creating this spaciousness within, so things don't seem so confusing and overwhelming. And like I said before, it's very settling. It feels very meditative. And eventually the gatekeepers release the grip, and they give you access to the child that they're afraid could be triggered or is triggered. And when we get access to the child that absorbed these beliefs through times where it couldn't express or be heard or be seen or valued, we can listen to it, begin to build a trusting rapport with them, him, her, and through that listening, they slowly reveal their needs, and we kind of reparent ourselves. Sometimes they call them redos. Sometimes we can go back into memories and really feel and process and feel in the body what needed to be felt during those ages in our lives where we were locked up or constricted. And after they fully express themselves and feel seen, heard, and valued, loved, cared for, they want to drop these limiting beliefs, and we work with them to do that. And then they bring forth into the self, whether it's me at 40 years old or anybody else at whatever age they are, they bring in the qualities that were lost or kind of displaced at the times when they couldn't feel. So maybe more play or dance or curiosity comes into one's life. It could be a multitude of things, but usually it's a sense of joy and laughter, and really like childlike innocence that returns to one's life. And then you shift back into the protectors, the gatekeepers, the firefighters, and managers, and you dialogue with them and say, did you witness what happened here? You no longer need to work so hard in fear of the child being triggered because the child no longer has those fears, those beliefs. And at first they're kind of confused because they may have had this identity for a long time, like an overworker or an addict or something like that, or someone who struggles with addiction. Someone who overworks. Let's reframe that. And a part that overworks, a part that uses, whatever to distract itself or self-soothe. And sometimes they take a break, which usually involves a little more rest in one's life and slowing down. And eventually, through this process of redos and reparenting the self and building trust and rapport, you return the self to the seat of consciousness, this curious, compassionate part, and it kind of helps create this dialogue amongst the parts to integrate and lean towards alignment in our behaviors, actions, and thoughts in all of our lives. And if we find that, the parts of ourselves are still, reacting in certain ways or overworking or anything like that, then we dialogue with them again. Maybe they need to be listened to more. Sometimes there's layers of the memories in our past and in childhood that slowly get unlocked as we build trust within. And through that process, we can reparent, meet the needs, provide curious compassion, and alleviate the grip so that the self can take more of a seat. And over time, the parts that were once fighting against each other, like the firefighters and managers, end up becoming friends. I need to do some work. Well, you've worked a lot. Can we take a little bit of a rest? Yeah, we're both on the same team here. Oh, I need to play a little bit. I need to do some childlike things and just not have any agenda. Okay. I need to take care of things. Okay, all right, let's do that. I want to eat some ice cream. Okay, let's do that. And things seem to start to balance out. And this confused state starts to alleviate. This inner fight starts to alleviate. And we can start to move forward towards whatever we dream of. It's not a linear process. Befriending the internal world and learning to be curious. It goes in different ways for different individuals. And I trust that everyone has the capacity to bring this sense of compassion within. I trust that they already have it. It just needs to be unlocked and reclaimed and rediscovered. So that's what I have today for internal family systems. I'd love to talk about how this works in my life in the future, or has worked in the past as well, and presently. So thank you very much for listening. I am Michael Thompson. This is Return to Presence, and I am grateful to be here. Thanks.